Christy with Rich. He is the director of the Student Tutor Center down at the San Diego campus at Alliant, also known as the Statistics Guru. We decided that we're going to run through my statistical analyses and dissertation, since he's the one who helped me put all of this together. We're hoping that this can clarify any gaps of knowledge, and hopefully we'll all end up on the same page. So,
hi Darcy, my name is Rich. I'm the stats guy down in San Diego. Real quick, first thing we did was we checked her POS variable and her FOD variable. And I got her data right here. We're going to check to see if it's normal or not. Where are you? And make sure we got the right data set. Yep. All right, we're going to go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, Explore. And we're looking for, there's fear of death, FOD, and physician-assisted suicide, POS. So I'm going to refer to them as FOD and POS. And we're going to go to here and Normality Checks. Boom. So right off the bat, here's all the means. You got 325 sample size. That's pretty darn big. And histogram, looks a little bit skewed, but we're going to go by the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, and this indicates that both variables have violated the assumption of normality. All right, that's part one. The data is not normal, so therefore we're probably going to use a non-parametric version of the t-test. So we're going to go ahead and do the Mann, Whitney, U-test. Before we get that, I'm going to go ahead and get their medians, because the non-parametric version of these parametric tests uses medians instead of means. So we're going to go to descriptives, frequencies, and there's FOD and POS. And all I want is their medians. All right, so there's the median of fear and death, 95, and POS is 12. There's the medians. We'll make sure that gets in there somewhere. So now we're going to go ahead and run our non-parametric. All right, 2 independent samples. And our test variables are FOD and POS. And our grouping variable is profession. And I believe we use the numbers 1 and 2. 1 for the medicals, 1 for the mentals. And there's our output right off the bat. So what we do here is we go down and we look at the z-score. And this says that there was a significant difference in the FOD scores between the two groups. And this one says there was a significant difference between the POS scores between the two groups. And then normally what I would do is go up and look at the means to see which one had the higher value. And because we can't go by the medians, because they have different scales. So real quick, I'm going to do a t-test just to get their means. No. Oh, get in there, you. Right, that's what I love about the independent t-test function. It gives you the means so you can tell you who's higher and who's lower. And we're going to do FOD and POS. Our grouping variable is profession. And again, we're going to use 1 and 2. Click OK. So again, we're not really looking at the t-test, we're just looking at the means, right? So since we know there's a significance, the medical profession is significantly higher on the fear of death, and the physician-assisted suicide, it's the same thing. The medical profession is significantly higher on both of those. A quick recap again is we use the Whitney, Mann, Whitney, U test here. Where did you go here? It's over here on one side. And there it is, non-parametric. So the Mann, Whitney, U test says that there's a significant difference between the means, between the medicals and the mentals for both fear of death and physician-assisted suicide. And the medians are up there. and we looked at the means from a faux t-test to see who was higher. So the medical guys are higher on both of these. Okay, so that answers your first two hypotheses. All right, on to number 3. Does POD alter professions PPAS? So professions is a categorical variable. So the hypothesis, the profession will, with higher FOD scores, will have higher agreeableness towards PAS in comparison to the other profession. Okay, so what that looks like to me is we're going to run a simple regression between FOD as the IV and POS as the DV. Let's do that first. And then we'll check the different professions. We'll split the file, and then I'll check to see if it's a real moderator here. Hold on a second. All right, we're going to go to Analyze. We're going to go to Regression. Linear. Get in there, you. And so FOD was the IV, and physician was the D, or the IV. I'm sorry, FOD was the DV. Oh, these are wrong. Please hold. Got them backwards. I'm old. All right, so POS is the DV. FOD is the IV, right? And we're going to check some of the assumptions. But because there's only one IV, one DV, this is basically like a correlation. There's not going to be a bunch to check here. All right, so regardless of groups, this is our regression model. There's the means and standard deviations of both of the FOD and the POS, which we already have. And here is the correlation. It's 0.219. It is significant. Let's drop down to the model summary box. So we have an R squared of 0.048. And according to the ANOVA, it is a significant prediction model. In other words, the two are significantly correlated regardless of the profession, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the file. So we're going to get a regression strictly for the medical and a separate one strictly for the mental. So we're going to go to Data, Split File. I love that function. And we're going to compare the groups. And we're going to do professions. Okay. Now, if they are different, if the regressions are different, one significant for one group and not for the other one, that means that variable, that categorical variable, is acting as a moderator. Okay, so, but now we're going to just do the regressions again, regressions, and that's the same. So we're going to get two separate ones, one for the medicals and one for the professional, or one for the mentals. So let's just go down here to the summary box, actually the ANOVA box. So you'll see that it is the relationship between FOS and POS is significant for the medical guys, but it is not for the mental guys. Okay, I'll say that again. The mental guys up here, the relationship between fear of death and physician-assisted suicide is not significant, but it is for the medical professions. All right, let me say that again. This is so important, right? So the first time, before we split the file, right, regardless of which profession it is, the ANOVA, right, this is a one-way between group ANOVA, states that the regression was a significant regression because this is less than 0.05. So when I split the file, what it did was it doubled everything. It made two separate regression models. So we scroll down here to the ANOVA. It did two separate one-way ANOVAs. The first one was using only the medical data. The second one was only using the mental data. So you got two separate one-way between group ANOVAs, and the first one is significant, which means that the relationship between FOS and POS, or FOD and POS, is significant for the medical professionals, but it is not for the mental professionals. All right, so since they're different, since we split the file, since they're different, we know that the grouping variable called professions if it's true for one level, if it's significant for one level, one group, and not the other, that by definition makes that categorical variable a moderator. So, but I got a little trick up my sleeve here. I'm going to unsplit the file. I keep forgetting to do that, but we're going to unsplit that file. And then we're going to use what we call the Haze process, which is the coolest thing since sliced bread. We're going to go to Analyze Regression. Oop, get in there. Right? Regression, we're going to use the Haze process, which has been around for about 5 years. It's actually very cool. So our Y variable was pause. Where are you? Pause. Our X variable was FOD. And our suspected moderator here is professions. Okay? And we click OK, and we wait a minute. And here's the results from the Haze analysis moderator check. So it tells you right up here, this is the model. Your output variable was pause, your predicted variable was FOD, and the suspected moderator was professions. So we go down here to this interaction line, this row. So if this interaction is significant, that means that the profession variable is a moderator, and it is. Excuse me, the moderator, the p-value is less than 0.05, therefore professions is a moderator between pause and FOD. And it's just it's the same thing as a split file, right? It found the same thing, that the relationship between these two variables is significant for the medical guys, but not for the mental guys. Okay, so that's that part. All right, question number 4. Does having children affect the medical and mental health professionals' FOD and their perspectives as pause? So this is pretty much just like the previous one, but we're gonna switch out the variable of professions with whether they have kids or not. So we already know that regardless of profession or kids, that FOD and POS are significantly correlated. We already know that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the file, this time for children, and rerun the regression between FOD and POS. All right, so, and it's the same thing. If they're different, that means having children will be also acting as a moderator or not. So we're going to go to Analyze. No, we're going to go to Data. Get in there. Split the file, and we're going to split it by the kids. All right, we're going to rerun the regression, Analyze Regression. And again, it's split by whether they have kids or not. So we're going to get one for the people with kids and one with the people without kids. 2 separate regressions, right? And here's the yes with kids, no with kids. We're going to scroll down to the ANOVA box again. And because it was a split file, the software is going to run 2 separate one-way between group ANOVAs. So right off the bat, those guys with kids, again, the relationship between POS and FOD is significant, right? But the people without kids, it is not significant. So let me say that one more time. After splitting the file for whether they have kids or not, the software ran 2 separate regression models, and it indicated that the relationship between FOD and POS is significant for people with kids and not significant if they don't have kids, regardless of profession, okay? And again, that makes children, whether they have children or not, a moderator as well. Okay, so the next thing that popped into my head is we should run a 2x2 ANOVA using profession as one categorical IV with 2 levels, and whether they got kids or not. That's the second IV with 2 levels. And we'll run one for FOD and a separate one for POS to see if there's any kind of interaction going between profession, a person's profession, and whether they got kids or not. So here we go. We're going to go to Analyze, General Linear Model, Univariate. Now, even though we know that FOD and POS are not normal, we're going to run just a regular ANOVA anyway, because the ANOVA is considered a robust test. And I don't think there is a non-parametric version for a 2x2 ANOVA, at least not one that I'm familiar with. So we're going to let's start with fear of death as the DV. And we're going to stick in professions as IV1, and whether they got kids or not, which is IV2. And we're going to look at our options, and we're going to check homogeneity variance and descriptives and pala. Click OK, and I think that's the only ones we need. Click OK. And here is the output for our 2x2 ANOVA with FOD as the DV. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at the means. And there is a difference here, right? I see a low for the mental health professions without kids. Their fear of death is the lowest, and the medical profession with kids is the highest. So let's see if that's significant or not. And according to this, right, there is a main effect for profession, which we knew already, right? In other words, there's a significant difference in the FOD scores between the professions, and there's also a significant difference in the FOD scores between whether they have kids or not. So there's a main effect for professions, there's a main effect for child, but there is no interaction there. Got it? There is no interaction between which profession they are and whether they have kids or not when it comes to the FOD scores. Okay, so we're going to repeat this for the pause. Analyze, general linear model, univariate, out with fear of death, in with physician suicide. Boop, 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 boop. Click OK. And again, we always look at the means. So we got a low of mental health, yes. That's pretty low. And our high is medical, yes, with kids. So let's see, let's look at the output from our source of variance table. So here it is right here. So for the professions, there was no significant difference in the pause scores. Okay, so it doesn't matter if they're medical or mental when it comes to the physician-assisted suicide scores. And going down one, so there's no main effect of child either, right? So child, their significant value is nowhere near 0.05. So there was no main effect of child, no main effect of profession, but you'll notice that there was a significant interaction between the two for the pause scores, right? So only for the physician-assisted suicide was there a significant interaction between what they did for a living and whether they have kids or not. So what I would do is go up here to our average box here and look at the lowest one again. So it looks like the mental health professions with children have the lowest pass scores by far. And the other side of that coin is the medical people with children have the highest physician-assisted suicide scores. So that's your interaction right there. And I think that's about it. All right, so for the last clarification, right, we had the two variables. So I made a single variable for mental with kids, mental without kids, medical with kids, medical without kids, and I called it 4 groups. Okay, so now I'm simply going to run just a regular one-way between group ANOVA with the new 4 groups, just to verify that interaction, that we got the right ones that are the highest and the right ones that are the lowest. So here we go. We're going to go to Analyze, General Linear Model, Multivariato, and we're going to reset. And let's start with FOD first. We're going to stick in our 4 groups. And what do we need here? Yeah, we need these guys. Click OK. And here's the numbers, how many there are. Here's the means. Again, you got some big differences here, right? And these agree with our 2x2s, right? The medical with kids had the highest. The mental without kids had the lowest. So that, we're getting verification. And it did not violate the variance rule, so we're good to go. Power was big enough, right? It was much bigger than 0.7, so we're good to go. And there was a significant difference there. So this is a great backup from the 2x2 ANOVAs that we ran. And, the bottom line is that for FOD, the medical people with kids had the significantly highest scores by far, and the mental people without kids had the lowest. Okay, that's FOD. We're going to repeat this with pause, analyze, generality or model, out with FOD, in with pause, and again, it should back up with what we had from the 2x2s. Where's my pause?
Go up. It's right under, yeah, right under our pod.
Thank you, Copilot. Okay, and everything else should be done. And again, here's the means. So same thing. Mental with kids, they're low on the pause. Medical with kids, they're high on the pause. Let's see if it was significant. Now we do have a problem here. The pause did violate the assumption of homogeneity of variance, but again, the ANOVA is a robust test. We're just going to keep pushing on there. And power was good. There was a significant difference in the pause scores, right? No question about it. So again, the medical with kids had the highest pause scores, significantly higher, and the mental with kids had significantly lower. So that does agree with the 2x2 ANOVAs there. So, all right, I hope this helps. Now, please don't hesitate to contact me if you got any questions, and we'll get this thing straightened out.
Perfect. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think you
all right.
Everything.
Okay, so, here I'm going to make this video now. Okay, thank you guys. Bye.